Alien takes place in one of the most believable and horrifying fictional worlds in all of cinema. In this video, I'm going to take a look at the world building in Alien from the writing perspective. The main argument I want to make with this video is that the point of world building is not to build a really cool world. The point of world building is to set the tone, develop the story, and put pressure on your characters. If it's not doing that, it's just baggage. I'm Micah Cratty, a WGA screenwriter and the head of writing at Arc Studio, and this is Script Study. Join me as I geek out about one of my favorite movies and see what lessons screenwriters and filmmakers can take from it to use in their own writing. I'm not going to go through the entire script in this video. There are a few sections that I want to focus on that I think are really good for exploring how the script handles world building. First off, I want to look at the opening where we see the ship for the first time and meet the characters. How does that happen? What are we learning from them? How is it written? Then there's a shift when we get to the alien planet and find the alien spaceship. I want to see how that is explored and written. And then I'm really excited to look at how the alien itself is written and how we learn information about the alien throughout the story. And finally, I want to look at how the script explores the larger political and economic system that these characters are operating in and how they do that in such a way that it's not just an exposition dump, but actually feels exciting and integral to the plot and also the twists that are going to occur throughout the movie. All right, let's jump into the first page of the script and see how the initial exploration of this world was written. So we're on page 1, fade in. Sometime in the future. Tier engine room, empty, cavernous. Engine cubicle, circular, jammed with instruments, all of them idle. Console chairs for 2, empty. Oily corridor, sea level. Long, dark, empty. Turbos throbbing, no other movement. Corridor, A level. Long, empty. Infirmary. Distressed ivory walls, all instrumentation at rest. I want to stop there and just kind of look at how this was written and also the content. The first thing you'll notice in the script is how the action is written. We have these really short lines that are very spare, empty, cavernous, and that's a single line. Circular, jammed with instruments, all of them idle. Console chairs for 2, empty. And then we have the words that are being used here. Engine, jammed with instruments, oily. So we can see that the style of the writing actually matches the world that's being written about. The style is spare, there's no frills, no ornamentation in the language, just like there are no frills or ornamentation in this world. This isn't Star Trek, this is oily, this is dark, this is distressed, it's a container ship. From these very first few scenes here, we're setting the tone, shaping the expectations for what's going to happen, what kind of people are going to be here, what kind of stories are going to be here, what kind of problems are going to be in this kind of world. After this initial impression, we get to page 2 where we meet our characters for the first time. One of the big things about introducing characters into a script is thinking about what they're doing when you meet them, because what they're doing and how they do it says a lot about them. So what are our characters doing in Alien when we first meet them? Are they acting heroic? Are they solving some kind of big problem? Are they fighting monsters? Are they saving the day? What are they doing? Let's look at it. Interior hyperspace vault. Explosion of escaping gas. The lid on a freezer pops open. Slowly, groggily, Kane sits up. Pale. Kane rubs the sleep from his eyes, stands, looks around, stretches, looks at the other freezer compartments, scratches, moves off. So what are they doing when we meet them? Are they saving the day? Are they acting heroic? No, they're waking up. And again, we can look at the word choice that's being used here. Groggily, scratches, stretches, smoking cigarette. Coughing. All of these things are just very down to earth. They're very familiar to the audience who is watching this or reading this, because this is something we can all identify with, waking up and just like not being ready for the day and needing our coffee. So just like the first page, when we're first getting a look at the world that our characters are inhabiting, here we're getting our first look at the characters themselves and like who they are. And this helps shape our expectation of them, because in movies, oftentimes there is the idea that our characters are exceptional, right? They're capable of more than the average person. That's kind of like why they're in the movie. They're the best at what they do. They're like so cool. They're a badass. And in this, we're seeing that like, okay, these aren't supermen and superwomen. They're just ordinary people, which means that they're going to struggle to overcome challenges that come their way. And it's kind of creating a tension here subtly, kind of under the surface from the very beginning. And this is continued where they get to the scene where they're all sitting around the table eating breakfast. And again, it is just very down to earth. And you can take a look at what they're talking about. And they're talking about food, how bad it is, And they're talking about their bonuses.
I think we ought to discuss the bonus situation. We deserve full shares, right, baby?
You see, Mr. Park and I feel that the bonus situation has never been on an equitable level.
This makes it a very accessible entry point for the audience to start thinking, or not even like necessarily thinking about these ideas, but just to kind of have them in the back of their head that this is an unequal world, that like not everyone's going to get what they deserve. And that's really going to pay off later in the script. And it's just doing it in a very organic way where you don't know it's happening. And that's another really important thing about world building, is that the audience shouldn't know that the world building is happening. The audience should just be with these characters on their story, and everything they're learning about the world just seems natural and organic. And then the last thing I want to say about the world building in this initial section is where we are. The way that we learn where we are, and by we I mean the audience or the reader of the script, we learn it with the characters.
Where's Earth?
You should know.
It's not our system.
Because the characters don't know where they are. They wake up and they think they should be at Earth because they were coming back from a mission to Earth and they weren't supposed to wake up like until they got home. They're confused here, and it is creating a sense of mystery. And the characters are in the same place that the audience is. When you have the characters learning about the world, that is a great way for the audience to learn about the world. In space, no one can hear you scream, and on YouTube, I can't tell if you liked this video or subscribed to the channel, but please do it anyways. And while you're at it, why not turn on all notifications so you can get more screenwriting content like this? The characters finding out that they're not where they're supposed to be when they wake up is a transition point for the story, but also for the world building, because it takes us from familiarity to unfamiliarity. The characters wake up on their ship, which is a familiar world to them. This helps the audience make the transition as well. Since they are with the characters, in the characters' POV, kind of experiencing it through them, the characters have grounded them in this world, made them familiar with it, so that now the audience can experience the shift to the unfamiliar world with the characters. So in your own writing, when you're doing your world building, if you start with your characters in their familiar context, the audience can ground themselves to that, and then they can experience the shift to the unfamiliar world and actually appreciate that. Because for the audience, everything is unfamiliar. So if you don't ground them in like what is normal for this world, they're not going to appreciate what is abnormal. This shift of moving from the familiar to the unfamiliar starts with not knowing where they are when they wake up, and then it continues with the news of this mysterious transmission that they've received, which has triggered them being woken up and diverted from their course home. We can look at page 9 when Dallas, who is the captain, says, "Some of you may have figured out that we're not home. We're only halfway back to Earth." "What the hell," says Brett. "Mother's interrupted the course of the voyage." Mother is the name of the computer on the ship. Kane asks why. "She's programmed to do that if certain conditions arise." They have. Pause. "Seems Mother intercepted a transmission of unknown origin. She got us up to check it out." Transmission? Out here? What kind of transmission? So we can see by the reaction of Ripley and Lambert that this is news to them. This is something that's unexpected. It's letting the audience know, okay, this isn't a thing that happens every day. We should pay attention to this. And then Dallas says, "An acoustic beacon. It repeats at intervals of 12 seconds. Kane, is it an SOS? Unknown. Ripley, human? Unknown. So what?" And the great thing is that there's no answer here. They don't know what this is either. So this is creating a question, a mystery that the audience wants solved. And the reaction of the crew to this mystery is what I think makes Alien so special, and what makes the world building in Alien so fantastic. Because they've learned that there's this transmission, it might not be human, it's unknown, all these big questions. And they don't talk about like, what is it? You know, they don't start like philosophizing or like talking about their obligations or anything like that. The reaction is that like Parker says, "Christ, I hate to say this, but we're a commercial ship, not a rescue team. This kind of duty is not in our contract. But if it's for some money." So they've learned that like they may be getting contact from an alien, and the first response is, are we going to get paid for this? Are we going to get extra? Is there a bonus? It's like your boss having asked you, to do some extra work, and you're just like, all right, am I getting overtime for that? Everything in this movie is so grounded on an accessible level that the audience is just like so on board with what's happening here. And then in response to this question, it's just like, do it or you're not going to get paid. Like, that's the argument. It's not like we have to do this, we should, like anything like that. It's literally just like everything must be investigated at penalty of total forfeiture. So it's like, do this or you're getting nothing. You're getting no money. These aren't heroes. They're not trying to be heroes. They're just people with jobs who like need their paycheck. Then we land on the alien planet itself, and I just want to look a little bit at how it's described, and the experience of landing there is described. There's a thick cloud layer, extreme turbulence, storm blowing across the night-shrouded surface. The Nostromo hovers on glowing beams of light. Landing struts unfold like insect legs. The ship slams down, rocks heavily on massive shock absorbers. I think this is cool. There's another thing I want to say here, which is that the writing is still spare and everything, but it's also really beautiful. It's quick to read. It's easy to read. It's similar to the opening scene where you're just getting the vibe of what's going on. You get kind of what's happening and then you can move on. It's not like excess baggage getting in the way of the story. And then you have an electrical fire breaks out along 3 control panels. A pressure valve blows. Another conduit breaks loose. All lights go out. You get that this ship isn't made to do this kind of stuff. It talks about all things are breaking because there's dust in the engine. Dust is causing these people problems. And if dust is causing them problems, what is a killer alien xenomorph going to do to them? So you see that the ship is literally not built for this. They are not built for this. They haven't met the alien and they're already in over their head. And also, you could talk about world building. We've actually got to the world now. This is the alien world, and it's not a passive element. It's causing problems for them. It is clogging their engine with dust. It is being antagonistic. Every element is being used to amp the conflict in this story, which is something, that should happen in world building. The world should participate in the story. It shouldn't just sit back and be background. It's there to put pressure on the characters to help develop the story. And then a couple pages later, they actually see the spaceship for the first time, the alien spaceship. And the way it's described is very simple. A gargantuan spaceship rising from the rock, clearly of non-human manufacture. There's no detail here. It wasn't the writer's job here to paint the visual world of it. That was the art department, and there's a lot of videos you can kind of explore how the art was created for Alien, which is pretty cool. But what's important here is the size, and what's really important is that it's not human. That's the relevant detail, and so that's what was included in the description, is that this is not human. I think also as the reader, we don't necessarily care so much what it looks like on the outside. What we care about is what it contains. We want to get inside. So this is moving quickly and letting the crew get inside. You also see the action lines, the description being supported by the dialogue. So the action says clearly of non-human manufacture, and the dialogue says, Ash, yeah, never seen one like it. Neither has Mother. It's being reinforced both for the reader who would read the description and for the audience who would watch it. All right, now we actually get to meet our first alien, which is a fantastic part of the story and a fantastic part of the world building. Dallas, Lambert, and Kane have walked across the planet, got to the ship, entered the ship, and then Kane has rappelled down into this large hold in the alien spaceship, and we pick it up at the bottom of page 30. Kane approaches the center of the room. On the floor are rows of leathery ovoid shapes. He walks around them, shines his light on one. It's like some kind of storage area. Is anybody there? Do you read me? Loud and clear. This place is full of leathery things. Like the ones up above, they seem to be sealed. Can you see what's in them? I'll give it a look. He tries to open one of them. It won't open. Strange feeling to it. Don't open it. You don't know what's in it. Kane peers closely at the leathery ovoids. Turns away. Raised areas begin to appear where he touched it. He moves his light along the rows, turns back to the one he was examining. Something has changed. The opaque surface begins to clear, object becoming visible within. Kane shines his light on the floor at the base of it. He studies it. Jesus. What? Viscera and mandible, now visible. The interior surface, spongy and irregular. Kane shines the light inside. With shocking violence, a small creature smashes outward, fixes itself to his mask. Sizzling sound. The creature melts through the mask, attaches itself to Kane's face. Kane tears at the thing with his hands, his mouth forced open. He falls backward. I absolutely love how this scene is written because it doesn't appear to be world building. And like I said earlier, the best world building doesn't appear to be world building. What this is a horror scene of a character first encountering a monster. That's what it is. And it contains the elements of great horror writing. So what's happening here? First, information is being revealed slowly, leaving time for tension. He comes into the room, he sees these objects, he's exploring them. It's strange, it's weird. It's not rushing to get to the alien. It takes time, it lets the audience build their apprehension. Second, as the details are being revealed, they become increasingly scary. So first off, they're these leathery things. It's a little disconcerting. And then the surface begins to clear. We get to see more, and we see viscera and mandible. I absolutely love the line, viscera and mandible now visible. I might get that as a tattoo. And then with shocking violence, a small creature smashes outward, fixes itself to his mask, sizzling sound. I feel like this whole thing could just be like a tattoo. Like you could just get the entire kind of passage going down like the length of your chest. But the creature is being seen fully as it's attacking Kane. We're meeting it in action. We're meeting it as a threat. So again, as I said earlier, like these are all elements of compelling horror writing, but this is world building. We are meeting this creature in such a way that we don't realize it's world building. We're getting a better sense of who it is, what kind of threat it is. We're learning about the world in such an engaging way that we are just transfixed, which is really like what you want with world building. And I really want to emphasize that the world building matches the tone. In fact, it's actually helping to create the tone, because what's happening in the world is scary, but it's also being written in a scary way. It's being written in a tense way. So the style is contributing to the world building, like to the entire experience that the reader and the audience are going through. Then we jump forward a little bit in the script and we get the scene where they're trying to remove the facehugger from Kane. They cut it open and the blood starts to drip down from this alien, and it turns out it's acid blood. And what's cool about this part is that we're learning details about the alien, but again, we're learning them in a way that is so fun and is just part of the story. It's adding tension, it's adding conflict, because this acid blood starts to drip and they say it's going to eat through the decks and out the hole. It is creating a problem. You could picture this as being like a briefing, right? Where there's like some scientist being like, and the alien has acid blood, so blah, 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 which would just be so boring. But instead, we're learning it in action as a threat. And then this approach of learning more details about the creature through peril, through tension, through conflict continues with the whole chest burster scene. So Kane appears to have recovered. The thing on its face falls off. He seems like he's doing okay. He's hungry. And then, of course, you just have that phenomenal, amazing scene where it bursts out of his chest. But what are we learning? We're learning about this alien's life cycle. This is the biology class where you're like, and then it deposits its eggs here and then blah, blah, blah. But it doesn't feel like any of this is a science class or anything like that. It's just a fantastic story. And then we keep learning about its life cycle on page 70, where suddenly this thing is 7 feet tall. And so we learn like, okay, it starts as a facehugger, it deposits eggs, the thing bursts out, and then like it grows rapidly. And all of that, again, could have been like a briefing from a scientist, like listing it out. But instead, we have just been horrified and thrilled and entertained and watched our characters feel those same, like, well, the characters aren't entertained, but like watching them being put under stress, put in pressure, because like that's how you reveal things about characters. Like you put them under pressure, you put them in stress and see how they respond. And so we're doing that in this movie through the world building itself. The last part of the world building in Alien that I want to explore is the bigger picture, the socioeconomic context, the power structure that all these characters are operating under. And of course, in Alien, that has to do with the company that they all work for.
It's a damn company. What about our lives, you son of a bitch?
The company name isn't actually spoken aloud in Alien, but in future installments, it's named as Weyland-Yutani. And one thing to say is that there's like no big speech about the company, about like the shareholders, about who the CEO is. It's all very organic. It's all just very much a part of the story, and only arises as it would naturally based on like what these characters are dealing with. So on page 45, we have this scene with Ripley and Ash where they argue about quarantine, because when Kane came back with the facehugger, attached to his visage, they're like, let us in. And Ripley was like, nah, I'm not supposed to let you in. There's quarantine protocols. There's like an alien species. I shouldn't let it on the ship.
If we let it in, the ship could be infected. You know the quarantine procedure.
24 hours for decontamination.
But then Ash, who is the science officer, who's like very much like a by the book kind of person, lets them in. And Ripley and Ash have this argument, and they're arguing about quarantine policy and protocol, which is a very dry subject.
Ash, when Dallas and Kane are off the ship, I'm senior officer.
Oh, yes, I forgot.
But it's presented as a conflict between the two, and it's also presented as a mystery where Ripley is trying to figure out like what Ash is up to. There is tension there is conflict, there is intrigue.
You also forgot the science division's basic quarantine law.
No, that I didn't forget.
Oh, I see. You just broke it.
So we're learning about the structures of this world, about like the procedures and the protocols through conflict, and it's about a threat to them. And then on page 50, there's this conversation with Dallas and Ripley, where they're talking about like procedure again. And Dallas says, same way everything happens, orders from the company. And Ripley says, since when is that standard procedure? And Dallas says, standard procedure is to do what they tell you. And this is the best summation of the world that they lived in, of the world building. There is no fairness here. There is no justice here. The company only looks out for itself. The employees are expendable. So this is a brutal, uncaring system that they're in. And then this continues with the big reveal at the end about Special Order 937. And there are a couple of reveals here. One is the twist that the company knew what was going on all along. They knew about the alien. They sent them there to get the alien. They knew that the alien would be a threat to the crew and that the crew was expendable. And this reinforces everything about the movie that we've sort of seen so far, the uncaring, unjust nature of this world. It's all being reinforced by the twist, by the story. So the world building and the story are going hand in hand. You also get the reveal that Ash is an android, which is a really cool thing that we didn't know androids existed in this world. No one's talking about androids. There's no arguments about oh, did you hear Weyland-Yutani just released their new Android 3.0 model? It's just part of the story that the Ash is revealed to be an android. And it's revealed through action, again, through peril, where he's throwing people around and trying to kill Ripley. So the way we're learning about the company, about Weyland-Yutani, is a much more forceful argument for who they are, for how evil they are, than any speech would be, because we're just seeing through action. There's the old saying, of course, actions speak louder than words. And so we're just learning about how cruel the company is by how they treat the crew as expendable, how they devalue human life. And that really is what this universe is. It is one where the powerful do not care about the powerless. All right, that's it for this episode of Script Study. I hope you enjoyed it and learned some things about world building that you can use in your own scripts. From all of us at Arc Studio, be kind to yourselves and happy writing.